Thank you for starting your morning with us. Our top story this hour, U.S. President Donald Trump has given a rare concession that he made a mistake following a comment at a U.S.-Russia summit in Helsinki. Well, Trump was under intense pressure to explain why he appeared to back the word of Vladimir Putin over the conclusions of his own intelligence agencies regarding alleged meddling in the 2016 U.S. election. Well, reading from a typed document back in Washington, he clarified what he actually meant to say, but it raised yet more questions. Among them, why there was no criticism of Russia's involvement in Syria or of the annexation of Crimea, and why the issue of nerve agent attacks in Britain was apparently not raised. Well, Trump still refused to publicly condemn the Russian president and even suggested that other parties may also be involved in election meddling. Well, here's what he had to say.
It should have been obvious. I thought it would be obvious, but I would like to clarify just in case it wasn't. In a key sentence in my remarks, I said the word would instead of wouldn't. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't or why it wouldn't be Russia. So just to repeat it, I said the word would instead of wouldn't. And the sentence should have been, and I thought it would be maybe a little bit unclear on the transcript or unclear on the actual video. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia.
Well, that was in stark contrast to this comment made by Trump just the day before.
My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be, but I really do want to see the server. So I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today.
Well, both Donald Trump's own Republican Party and the opposition Democrats reacted strongly to his comments in Helsinki. Take a listen to what both the House Speaker and the Senate Minority Leaders had to say.
Well, let me be really clear. Let me try and be as clear as I can to the world of the country. We stand by our NATO allies and all those countries who are facing Russia aggression. We just conducted a year-long investigation into Russia's interference in our elections. They did interfere in our elections. It's really clear. There should be no doubt about that. It's also clear that it didn't have a material effect on our elections. But as a result of that, we passed tough sanctions on Russia so that we can hold them accountable.
Now, yesterday marked one of the worst days for any president of the United States and his actions in memory. His behavior was so bizarre, so weak, so deleterious to American interests and our national security that millions of Americans are left wondering if Putin indeed has something over the president.
Well, for some analysis of this remarkable backtrack, NBC News' correspondent Hans Nichols sent this report from the White House.
When he got back from Helsinki Tuesday afternoon, President Donald Trump tried to clean up that press conference he had with Vladimir Putin. He reviewed the entire transcript. His National Security Principles Committee met earlier in the morning. And the only issue President Donald Trump found in his performance was that he said would instead of wouldn't. That's right. He meant a contraction. He meant to say wouldn't, and he actually said would. By implication, that means that all the other things President Donald Trump standing next to Vladimir Putin, which, according to U.S. officials, Vladimir Putin, as well as the Russian intelligence agencies, clearly meddled in the 2016 election. He endorses everything else he said, saying that both sides are responsible. Even for Washington, even for Trump, this was a remarkable moment. Remarkable for several reasons. Number one, the president was reading from a script. It was clear he didn't really want to do this. And then on top of that script, in a strong writing, in a marker pen, he wrote no collusion. That was a point that the president wanted to make. Obviously, he wanted to remind himself of it. It's also remarkable because this president rarely admits any mistakes. Now, here he wasn't necessarily admitting a mistake. He was trying to clarify it, he said, at several moments. But it is remarkable for that aspect as well. Overall, the president says he accepts the Intelligence Committee's assessment, that he has full faith. He used that term several times. But the big takeaway from this was a U.S. president that looked and appeared to be forced to read a statement that he didn't necessarily entirely believe and ad-libbed quite a bit from. We'll see whether or not in the next 24, 48 hours, whether or not this half apology from President Donald Trump is going to be enough to quell not only his critics on the Democratic side, but his internal critics, these Republicans that think the president really blundered in Helsinki. Was this statement enough? Hans Nichols, NBC News for Euronews at the White House.
Well, critics in the U.S. have clearly been loud, but what are the Russians saying? Alex in the Cube has been following this side of the story. Alex.
Good morning, Tessa. Yes, here at Euronews, we have a commitment to hearing all voices. That's all sides of a story. Nobody benefits from hearing just one side. So there were two countries represented at this summit. One was America, of course. The other was Russia. Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, meeting with President Donald Trump. So what do the Russians have to say about it? We've been looking through Russian media, both Russian language and then the Western-facing English language Russian media, just to give you an idea of what's been said. And the Izvestia newspaper, one of the longest-running publications in Russia, picked up on Donald Trump's criticism of the way the media treated him. We've had this tweet translated by our Russian team here at Euronews, and roughly a translation and then an interpretation comes as Trump accuses the media of trying to compromise the result of a successful summit with Vladimir Putin. So picking up Donald Trump's remarks about the media's treatment of the summit in the West. Then there is the Sputnik news service, which receives funding from the Russian Federation. They have put an opinion piece up in which an expert says that the Western media is using any opportunity to tear down Donald Trump. This summit, these remarks, just another one of the many reasons why the Western media just picking on Donald Trump once again. Then there's the TASS, the state-owned TASS news agency in Russia. Now, they are picking up lines from the summit. There was a roundtable discussion that took place in Moscow after the summit ended, with Russian academics looking at what came out of it. And one of those academics, the first one was Kortunov, his name is Kortunov, points out that this thaw in relations will allow lower-level diplomatic relations to improve. So in that sense, there was a successful outcome of the summit. Garbuzov, another academic who was represented at that round table, said that actually progress was made on Syria, an issue that's incredibly complicated. And he seems to be very optimistic coming out of it. The US-Russian improved dialogue because of this summit could have a real impact on the conflict in Syria. It wasn't just in Russia, though, that people were standing up for Donald Trump. It's worth saying that he has long time been calling for a thaw in relations. But Stephen Cohen, an academic in America, described the reaction by Western media as like mob violence against Donald Trump. So there are voices, albeit in the minority, albeit perhaps on the favouring a Russian perspective, in America as well, though, that are critical of the way Donald Trump is being treated. What do you think? We want to hear your thoughts. You can let us know and use #TheCube in your comments.
Thanks, Alex and the Cube, for always bringing us, different sides to every story. Thank you.